Head to the home section of your favorite big box store and grab a tension rod that is 1 inch in diameter. Buy some bunches of faux fall flowers and leaves. Lay a pool noodle flat on a table and draw a straight line across the top of the noodle with a marker. Then take a sharp pair of scissors and cut a slit through the entire top side of the pool noodle. Then take your tension rod and push it through the sliced cut and into the center of the noodle. Take your faux floral stems in your favorite autumnal colors and cut the stems to about 1 inch below the bloom. Starting with your larger flowers, simply poke the stems of the blooms into the pool noodle. They will stay secure and no glue should be needed. Add additional larger sized blooms as well as plant foliage that you can tuck beside or under a flower. Once you get the larger flowers set, start to fill in with smaller blooms as well as wandering flowers. You can add other items to your floral tension rod. Poke small pumpkins with wire into the pool noodle. Take it all a step further and twist some floral wire around pieces of ribbon, and then poke the wire into the pool noodle. This is a great way to hide sparse areas on the pool noodle. Follow the instructions for your tension rod and adjust the length to fit between 2 cabinets in the kitchen above your sink. Your tension rod garland is a perfect way to decorate for the fall season.
Super, super simple. You just need to take a grapevine wreath and then you need to cut out some leaves from a different felt. So as you can see, I chose 3 colors. I chose blue, a nice looking orange, and some kind of like Bordeaux color. Put a dot of the hot glue in the corner of the leaf. And then you squish it together. So this way you're kind of getting the texture for the leaf and it looks nice and cute. And then you need to glue it to the grapevine wreath. The next project is also super cute and it's gonna require also felt, and we're gonna make a felt leaf garland. So for this project, I just chose different shapes of leaves. I just downloaded online the template of the leaves, or you can just simply freehand it as well. When your leaves cut out are ready, and yeah, if I didn't mention before, you can choose different colors, you can do the same color. I did like 3 different colors. And so when the felt leaves are ready, you need to take an old book, and I know, don't get me started. I also am not a big fan of ripping off books or anything, but this was such a old book, and this is the one that I use for all my paper projects, for the book projects. So just like take a page from the book and then trace the felt leaf on top of that page, and that's it. But now let's get started decorating the mantle. First, I put the wreath on top of my art display, and if you're interested, I have this on my blog, how I made this art installation. I did like such a long time ago, and I absolutely love it. And then I put this like little board that I already had from last year, and this box. So this box, I found it in the thrift store, and it's an original cheese box, and I think it looks super adorable, and it adds some sort of simple like fallish vibe. None of the stores were selling the pumpkins yet, so I had to invest into the fall ones, and I absolutely love how they turned out, and they're probably gonna serve me like for a long time to come. Next up, I added the garland, and as I told you before, yes, I just simply took the rope and pink cloth and just attached the leaves on the rope. I think they look so cute. My kids absolutely adore them, and but they try to take them off all the time though. So yes, I added like more pumpkins here and there, and my beautiful colorful mantle is ready for fall.
To begin my project, I'm going to take this piece of maple wood here. It is about 8 inches wide. Then I'm going to take this standard dinner plate and I'm going to trace around it about 3/4 so that I have almost like a semicircle shape on my wood. Using my jigsaw, I'm going to cut that out. With it all cut out, then I'm going to take my sander and I'm going to give it a little rough sanding here just to smooth out the edges so that they're not rough from where I cut out with my jigsaw. Next, I'm going to take a piece of MDF that is little bit less than 1/2 inch thick, and I'm going to cut out the shape for my hat. I just did a rough drawing here. You just basically want to have a shape that's similar to this with one larger hump and then a smaller hump. Really easy to draw. Then I'm going to take my sander, I'm going to sand that down as well so it's not rough. And then once I have that done, I have my 2 pieces for my gnome. I'm going to paint these pieces. For my bottom part, I'm going to use Harvest from Deco Art Paint. You also want to make sure that you don't forget to paint the edges as well because these will be seen. Next, I'm going to take this red paint. This paint is called Primitive. It's from the Chalky Finish line from Deco Art, and I'm going to paint the hat. Now, this does look a little bit like ketchup and mustard, but we're going to fix that in a bit here. First, I'm going to take this wired burlap ribbon and I'm going to paint that in the same color I painted the hat as well. I couldn't find a ribbon that I liked that matched, so I decided I'd paint my own. Next, I'm going to take this black wax from Country Chic Paint and we're going to rustic up the hat and the body of the gnome. So I'm just going around the edges using a foam brush, rubbing it in on the hat just to darken this red color a little bit. And then on the body as well, I'm going to do the black wax, but I'm going to go over it as well with a little bit of brown paint in areas. For a bit here, this is going to look a little bit messy, but it's all going to turn out in just a few seconds here. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm creating my under layer that's a little bit more rustic looking. Then I'm going to take this color Bee's Knees from Country Chic Paint and I'm going to dry brush over top of this, making sure that I just do a quick light coat. Then I'm going to take my sponge again and I'm going to rub the paint off so that what I've done underneath, those rustic layers, are going to show through. This is just an easy way to achieve a rustic finish. For those that don't have a lot of waxes and finishes, you can do this with ordinary paint. Next, I'm going to take this piece of really thin wood. This was actually just a garden stake that I got from the dollar store, and I'm going to cut off a little square using an X-Acto knife. Then using a thick needle, I'm going to poke holes into the edges of my square, going all around. They don't have to be uniform or lined up exactly. You can poke as many holes as you like. Then I'm going to paint this square using a nice green paint from Deco Art. And then once that's dried, I'm going to take a double-ended Sharpie marker and I'm going to just create some lines here for a checkered pattern. So I'm going to use the thick end first, and then once I've done that, I'm going to go along as well with the thinner end of the Sharpie just to create a little checker pattern patch. Once that is done, I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm going to rough it up a little bit just so it looks more primitive and rustic. For the body of my gnome, I'm going to use that as a template to cut my beard. So I just have this piece of fur here. I'm going to lay it over top to see how short I need to cut my beard. You always want to make sure that you cut fur from behind so that you don't wreck the fibers and the direction of the fur. So I'm going to cut out a rough triangle shape here to start my beard. Before I attach my beard, I want to attach the hat to the body, so I'm just drilling some pilot holes here before I place in my screws so that I don't crack the wood. And then I'm just placing in my screws here to attach the body to the hat. Once I have the hat and the body attached, I'm going to line up all my pieces and make sure they fit nicely before gluing them down. And then as well, I need a nose, so I just have this wooden bead here. To make it easier to glue on, I just sand down one edge of the bead so that it's flat, and then you can see it sits nicely on the wood. Once I have that all lined up, I can attach it with a bit of hot glue. So I'm going to lay my beard down first, just covering the seam where the hat and the body meet, and then I'm going to glue down my nose as well, and then follow it up with my ribbon for my hat. You will notice there are some gaps, but that is okay. We are going to be filling those in just a minute here. I attached the ribbon with my crown stapler to the back and cut off the excess. Just want to attach another piece of fur just around the nose to cover any holes or gaps between the nose and the ribbon. So I just take another little piece. It acts almost like a mustache and gives the beard a little bit more full look. I'm going to take this raffia and I'm going to cut off pieces of that, and this is where we're going to shove it in the gaps between the ribbon and the hat. So we just, with a bit of hot glue, work these in. And then I'm going to take this patch that I made here and I'm going to fill those holes with some gold wire. So I'm just going to place those in, wrap them around the back, and then cut them off. This just makes a little realistic 3D patch for our hat. So I'm going to glue that in place. And then as well, I also have this little wooden crow that I'm going to stick here in the hat. You can embellish your hat with whatever fall touches you like. And here is our completed gnome. I love this little fall gnome. I'm so happy with how it turned out. And the best thing about this project is you can get really creative and add your own touches to match with your decor.
Head over to Dollar Tree, start by placing your tomato cage upside down on your yard, and tape the prongs together so they make a nice point. Grab your light strand, start at the top, wind the light strand around and around the tomato cage until you reach the bottom. Grab your rectangle tablecloth, spread it all out, and wrap this around the tomato cage. Cut off the excess. Grab your round tablecloth, fold it up like a cone, and cut off the extra from the bottom. Lay the circle tablecloth out onto the ground. Place the tomato cage on top of the circle tablecloth. Place your solar panel out so it gets plenty of sunlight. You've now created a giant witch hat, which lights up at night. You're going to need some plastic tablecloth, pumpkin pails, and some tomato cages, and some lights. I'm going to start by placing the tomato cage upside down. With the part that sticks into the ground, I'm going to pull them all in together. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail and place it upside down onto all of the prongs. Next, I'm going to take my lights and I'm going to use some painter's tape so that I can hold this in place at the top. But I'm going to wrap the lights around. Next, I'll be using a round plastic tablecloth from Dollar Tree. So now I need to make some eyes, and I'm going to be using some gaffer's tape here, and I've made a template out of a piece of paper. Here are all 3 ghosts lined up for the trick-or-treaters. You are going to need a tomato cage. So I have the tomato cage upside down, and then I have a standard plastic pumpkin pail, and I'm gonna go ahead and tip it upside down and slide it over. And what I've got now is just a regular yard size garbage bag. Slide it over the top. I've just cut a piece of twine. I'm just gonna take this piece of twine and I'm going to go around. What I'm gonna use is another pumpkin bucket for the head. I'm going to go ahead and leave it mysterious and blank. Go ahead and add a little hot glue. So I got one of these sparkly little lights. I'm going to go ahead and put that inside. Next, of course, she needs a witch hat. And I've got these old bags. I'm going to go ahead and stick them inside. Place this right on top of her head. I'm going to use one more garbage bag to make their hands hold together. So I've cut the garbage bag into a long strip. I'm going to take it in the center. I'm going to go ahead and make a knot. I'm gonna add a little bit of hot glue to it, and then I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Here they are all on display, and I'm so excited with how they turned out. You're gonna need 2 laundry baskets. If you can't find black laundry baskets, you can paint them, and I'll be using Rust-Oleum black spray paint. Next, you're gonna need a skeleton and place them inside. And we're gonna take the other basket and place it on top. For this guy, what I've decided to use is hot glue. So I purchased some Halloween chain garland that we're gonna use to help hang him. So I'm gonna slide it onto a slat and hook it on like so. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So for this next version, you're gonna need 2 dollar store trash cans and a skeleton from Dollar Tree. I'm just gonna cut her little stretchy cord here. So I'm going to take the strings and I'm going to thread them up through the trash can. So I'm going to pull her up straight like this. Next, I'm going to make a little knot, and this will cause her to hang up straight. And I'm going to place the 2 trash cans on top of each other. I'll be using black paracord to adhere her together. Now, to hang her, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to loop it down through one of the holes and then work my way up through another hole. And then once I get it up, I'm going to just give it some extra length for hanging. And now I've created a way to hang it. Here they are hanging in our yard, and I'm so thrilled with how they turned out.
If you have any Christmas ornaments, this is the time they're going to come in really handy. So I've taken some of these ornaments and I'm giving them a light coat of white flat spray paint. And I picked up this cauldron that sits on a base and all of these fun colored ornaments. First thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut a piece of cardboard that will go right around here. I'm going to use some low temp glue and then I'm going to glue that so that it will not move around. I happen to have this cardboard box, and I'm going to set that down in there. I have this Dollar Tree pumpkin. What I'm going to do is just break this apart because I want to just fill in a little space. So you're just going to glue this to the sides of your cauldron, and then you're going to glue it to the ornaments to each other. I got these great little battery operated spider lights, and what I'm going to do is just tuck them down in between our bubbles, which are ornaments. I have this heavy duty stick on Velcro, and I'm going to stick it right on the back. So here is my cord coming down. I put the other piece of the Velcro. So I'm going to be able to stick this right up here, and I will still be able to push the button to change the settings. I look forward to sharing this on my table at my Halloween party. So I found a container that would fit right down inside. When I have my plaster of Paris completely stirred, I can go ahead and stick into it my piece of PVC. About 15 minutes, it is ready to go. Oh, I got a collection of skulls from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to give these a coat of this chalky paint. I'm going to take each one and cut an X, one in the top of the head and then one down here. All right, I have my urn and I have my PVC post in the plaster of Paris, and I'm going to set this right down inside. So I'm just going to stick a couple pieces of styrofoam in there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and going to push these in just a little bit and slide them right down over and all the way down. And we're just going to feed our skulls right onto that PVC post. This skull, I have only cut a hole in the bottom. This is going to go right over it and get secured right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue right there to secure these together. I'm just going to add Spanish moss to give it that real creepy feel. And we're going to wrap it around and tuck it in to give that real creepy feeling. And now right in by that styrofoam, I'm going to stick some hands. And now our decoration is all ready. And here is our skull topiary. Make sure that you paint those skulls with a spray polyurethane so that the paint doesn't wash off.
Who's ready for Halloween? We're going to take just a basic little black cauldron and we're going to mix some chalk paint, and I mixed it with some baking soda. We're going to grab some potting soil and put it on top of the wet paint, pat it in there, and we're going to pat some more paint on there. And we're going to just keep doing this all the way around the pot. Then we're going to grab some Christmas ornaments. I already took the little tops off of them, grabbed some more paint, and I just painted that. And then I started adding in all my ornaments. So I just kept adding. Now I added some little twinkle lights. I added some skulls. And it looks like an old stone cauldron that you kind of dug up somewhere.
Next time you're at the garden center, make sure you grab a tomato cage. I took the prongs of the tomato cage and I attached them together at the end using a zip tie. Then I'm going to take some greenery and I'm going to begin wrapping it around with zip ties, making sure that it holds in place. I'm going to work on some fairy lights here around as well. These are battery operated. And then I'm going to take a old rusty planter that I have that needs a little bit of a makeover. So I'm just going to spray it with some primer. And then as well, I'm going to spray it with a nice almond color spray paint. Fill it with rocks to add some weight. And then I'm going to put my tomato cage upside down. And here I have a beautiful topiary for my front porch. And at night, when the fairy lights turn on, they're on a timer, they light up, and I add some beautiful ambiance.
I'm using a galvanized pail that I got from Walmart, some brown chalk paint from Folk Art, and then from there I'm applying some white paint. So I'm just going to let this dry. I'm going to be taking 3 of these cute little pumpkins that I got from Dollar Tree, white acrylic paint. So for this next step, I'm sawing off the stems of my styrofoam pumpkins. I am going to be sawing through my pumpkins, and I'm actually taking some Mod Podge and I'm covering my entire pumpkin and then applying my fabric. And then we're going to let it dry. I'm going to be taking my fabric and I'm actually going to be applying it to a paper towel holder that I got from Dollar Tree. and I am going to be placing the paper towel holder on top of it. And the slits that I had cut into my pumpkins before, I'm just using those as kind of a guide so that I can cut through the fabric. And I'm going to be stacking my pumpkins on top of the paper towel holder through the slit. And then I'm applying the moss with hot glue. I had a branch from my backyard, and then I used hot glue to apply it to the top pumpkin. I hope this inspired you to create your own pumpkin Dollar Tree topiary for your home.
I have one of those foam crafting pumpkins, and I want to make a hole in the top of this one and also in the bottom. Smaller pumpkin, and I'm going to cut a hole in the bottom. I have my drill, and I have a longer drill bit on it, and I'm gonna just drill some holes around each of the pumpkins. And I'm just taking a small amount of brown paint, and I'm just following the ridges of the pumpkin. I'm taking a small string of Christmas lights. I'm gonna pop some in there, and then I'm just gonna put the whole thing into the top of the middle pumpkin and run it out the bottom. Now I'm gonna glue the pumpkins together. And now I'm gonna add a stem. I cut some bittersweet vine from my backyard, and I'm just gonna wrap it around the sections of the pumpkins. And here's our little pumpkin topiaries at night.
I wanted to cut off the corners of this big hunk of styrofoam, but I'm going to wedge this all the way down. We're going to start with some fresh plants. Then back here, I picked a couple of mums, and I had some scraps of dowel rods, some beautiful silk leaves, and push these down in the middle of my styrofoam here. I have things like pumpkins that we're going to add. So I just picked up things that I thought were nice for fall and nice color, but would raise up above. And I had one of these inexpensive chain leaf garlands left, so I'm just going to cut it apart and add some of these. Here is my beautiful urn, and it just adds so much down here at the bottom of my steps.
Time to break out of jail. That is, the Walmart ball jail. You also need some green reindeer moss. Start by spray painting the Walmart ball with moss green spray paint. Separate the large pieces and stretch out any chunks that are thick. With a can of general spray adhesive, spritz a small portion of the ball with the adhesive. Take a small patch of green moss and press it onto the ball in the sticky area. Press and hold for a few seconds to make sure it sticks. Continue to spray the ball and attach the green moss to the outside. Once you cover the entire ball with spray adhesive and moss, give the entire moss-covered ball an overall coat of the spray adhesive. Style it in a woven basket for a textured boho look. Place in a low, colored glass bowl for a more modern look. And for a traditional look, a large ceramic pot is perfect for this moss-covered ball.
What I'm going to do is I took a scrap of styrofoam and fit it down in here, and I wedged it really tight. And now I am going to set this right on top. Now I cut some little wedges of styrofoam, and I'm just going to tuck them right in here. You're going to want to head over to the Dollar Tree and pick up one of these garlands. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and go around my cone here, pin the garland to the cone. So I'm just going to start. I've got some pretty fall silk flowers, and I am just going to go ahead and poke this right into my foam tree. Now, if you don't have one of these fancy pick machines, one of the alternatives is wood wired sticks, okay? They look like this, and you buy them in a bunch. What you do is you put the wood wired stick up next to your stem, and you take this wire and you wrap the wire around the stem really tightly and around the green stick. At the end, you must wrap it just around the stick at least a couple of times, and then that won't come off. See, I can stick this right in. Here is a leaf that has just a stem that's not firm enough to stick into our styrofoam. We only need a little bit of this skewer, and we're going to put that stick right up next to the leaf, and then we're going to take the floral tape and wrap it around the leaf and around the skewer, and now you will be able to add that really easily. I'm just going to go ahead and keep building this up I will use a combination of my steel pick machine and the skewers. I'm so happy with how this turned out, and you can see it coordinates with my other items on my mantle just beautifully.
So we're going to remove this stem. I'm using raw silk fusion mineral paint, and I'm going to mix it with baking soda to give it some texture. When the paint's still wet, sprinkle a little bit of the baking soda on top and just sort of go like this. While our pumpkin is drying, I've got an ordinary $couple wreath, and I'm going to cover it with water, soften it, and I'm going to let it soak overnight. I'm going to put some Annie Sloan wax on it. I'm going to first put a coat of clear, and then I'm going to come back with a little bit of dark wax. Show you, I have quite the collection of real stems, and all we're going to do is simply hot glue this on and hold it. You can use any kind of a basket. And I have this tall flower pot that I'm going to put in the center. I have some old burlap bags. I'm now going to take a grapevine wreath, and I like to pull it apart a little bit and just fit it right over the top. Now I have a large handful of Spanish moss, and now I'm going to place the pumpkin that we created. I'm going to add some berries. I just picked a couple sprigs up at Michael's. There is our front porch pumpkin decoration, and the beauty of this pumpkin is it will last forever.
To make the outside of the crate look better, I want to cover it with some thick jute twine. I'm going to start at the top of the crate and hold the end in place with some hot glue. Then I can just wrap it around the whole way down. I had this heavy old cabinet door though that fits perfectly. I want to start by making the foam just slightly bigger than the door. The best way to cut foam is with an electric knife. So I'm going to lay it down with the pattern side against the table, and then I'm going to place the foam in the middle of it. I can lay the door on top. To hold the fabric in place, I could use an electric stapler, but I find it just as easy to use hot glue. I'm going to hold the ends in place and hot glue these as well.
Next time you are at Walmart, grab a large plastic bowl or pasta bowl and a cereal bowl. Flip the large bowl over and apply a ring of clear adhesive glue around the perimeter of the bowl bottom to secure the two bowls together. Take some decorative rope and hot glue it around the center where the two bowls meet. Fill this bowl with water and add some floating candles.
The next time you're at Home Depot, grab yourself 2 of their wooden crates, 4 of their hardware angled top plates, 4 legs in any style or design that you like. To begin, I'm going to take my crate. I'm just going to give it a little light sanding. Then I'm going to use Hollow Hill from Country Chic Paint. Once I've done that and let it dry, I'm going to take some plywood that I pre-cut, and I'm just going to give it a stain color. Once I've done that and all my paint is dry, I'm going to go ahead with this pre-glued veneer edging, and using a little mini iron, I'm going to iron this on around the edge of the plywood to cover the unfinished edge. I'm going to come in and do the sides of the veneer edging. Next, I'm going to use some Gorilla Wood glue, and then I'm going to be putting my wood piece on it. I'm going to clamp it and let this fully dry. Next, I'm going to come in with my angle plate, and I'm going to put those at all 4 corners of the plywood. Go ahead and screw on my legs that I bought. Once this is done, I'm going to take my second crate and I'm going to add some Gorilla Wood glue to that as well, and then I'm going to place it on top. Once the glue is set, take my second piece of plywood and I'm going to attach that to the top.
For today's project, I'm going to head down to my local hardware store. I'm going to grab some closet poles that expand. I'm also going to grab some brackets. These poles are really cool. One is larger than the other, but on the end I've got a cap with a screw. I need to take that off. Measure with these poles, put them together from floor to ceiling, and mark the height of my ceiling. What I'm going to do is I need to put these two together. So I'm going to mark it exactly the height I need, and I need a pre-drill. And then I'm going to attach it back again with the screw. This is going to be perfect size that I need. The next step is I'm going to take the smallest drill bit I can find and pre-drill. Don't push too hard, but you're going to put that first screw in, but don't go all the way because we're going to put that bracket on and slide it into place. Then we can take a pencil and mark exactly where our next screw needs to go. Put the bracket in again like we did before, and then we're going to go ahead and put the screw in. Once we get that first one in, we're going to put the second one. Let's head on inside now. We're going to put that bracket that comes with the poles into the ceiling, and then we're going to pop it into place. Now, let's take some twine because we're going to hang some plants.
Head to Amazon to purchase 12 by 10 glass wall mirror tiles. Take mirrors outdoors and lay them on a protective surface. Use water to spray all over the mirrors with a spray bottle, and then take the gold and antique pewter spray paint to spray along the outside edges of the mirror tiles. Allow time to dry and then wipe them off with a towel to see the aged finish. Open the pack of wood slices and pick out 8. Take outdoors to spray paint flat black on both sides. Use a level and painter's tape to create a guide to attach the mirrors in an ordered way on the wall. Take adhesive squares and glue that's included with the mirrors to attach to the back of each tile. Then place along the painter tape guideline and work horizontally and then vertically, applying the tiles securely. Once the mirrors have been attached to the wall securely, take the same glue from attaching the mirrors and use it on the back of the wood slices to place in the inside corners of the mirror tiles.
My daughter purchased a large television, and wouldn't you know it, her old TV stand was too small. All we really needed for this project was molding and an unfinished wooden top. I laid the board on top of the stand and measured to center it. Using my miter saw, I cut the molding to size. I pre-hammered finishing nails into the molding, added wood glue to the edge of the board, and hammered the molding into place. I continued to measure, glue, and nail molding to all 3 sides of the board. To secure the board to the old stand, I pre-drilled and added screws to the top, then filled the holes with wood fill. I also filled in the edges with wood fill. Once the wood fill was dry, I sanded it smooth. I applied 1 coat of a dark stain with polyurethane and allowed it to dry. Then I sanded using a fine grit sandpaper. To ensure the stand wouldn't fall over, I bought furniture straps. I measured and screwed one end of the strap to the TV stand, then measured and screwed the other end to the wall. Now the TV fits perfectly and my daughter can still use her old stand.
Grab a can of black spray paint and a roll of rattan webbing. Grab one of those outdoor folding metal tables. Clean it up with cut some paper and tape to the table so only the frame shows. Give the frame a fresh coat of black spray paint and let it dry completely. Outline the top of the table onto the rattan webbing with a Sharpie. Cut out the circle with some sharp scissors. Spray one side of the rattan with some spray adhesive. Spray the top of the table and let it sit for a few seconds until the surface is tacky. Place and press the sticky side of the rattan circle onto the top of the table. Place some heavy books on top of the rattan. Use some sharp scissors to trim the excess rattan from the circle. Hand sew a simple over-under stitch around the perimeter of the placemats, but pause about 2/3 of the way through. Stuff polyfill stuffing in between the 2 placemats to whatever thickness you want. Then continue sewing the remaining space with the jute twine and tie off with a knot at the end. Using the upholstery needle and yarn, sew the pom-poms at different points around the perimeter of the pillow.
Let's head over to Dollar Tree and we're going to grab a paper towel holder. Let's all run down to the hardware store and grab us a wood round. Gotta sand the edges. Got to condition the wood. Let it dry about 30 minutes to an hour. Once it dries, it's time to put on some stain. We're going to get 3 of those paper towel holders and we're going to set them in place. What we need to do is paint them. Once we get it all painted, let it dry. Now we got to curve the edges a little bit and bend them. Don't bend them too far, just get them a little 20 degrees and we're going to do all 3 at the same angle. Now we're going to put them in place on the bottom of our wood round. And I'm going to take these little electric hooks that I got out of the hardware store and I'm going to put 4 all the way around each side of these circles here. And once I got them marked, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill. I'm going to go ahead and put little tiny screws in and hold these clips in place. And I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue. And then I'm going to take some twine. I'm going to set it there and then I'm going to start wrapping it all the way around.
We're going to start today's DIY with a remote controlled light bulb. So we're going to take that little holster and we're going to glue that to the top with hot glue. And then we're going to put in our light bulb. We're going to take a clamp so that we can add that on top in order to hold your lampshade. Take that finial piece, screw that back on so it's nice and snug.
When I found these pumpkins, I looked beyond their bright orange color. To start, I grabbed 2 of my favorite colors of paint. I'm going to paint one of the smaller pumpkins in each of these colors, and then I'm going to mix the 2 together for the largest pumpkin. To make sure the clay releases, I'm going to dust the molds with cornstarch. Now I'm going to fill the flower molds with the clay and make sure it's nice and packed down so it gets into all those little details. With the flowers all made, it's time to arrange them and adhere them to the pumpkin. A little tacky glue all over the back of the flower adheres them really well. With everything ready, I'm going to give the pumpkins and flowers a coat of paint in the same color I used for the first coat. Now that the paint is dry, I want to add a little glaze to highlight the beautiful flowers. Using a small brush really helps to get it into all of those little small spots. After getting it in where I want it, I'm just using a cloth to wipe it off all the high points. Finally, to finish off my pumpkins, I want to add some stems. I can't believe how different these pumpkins look now. I love the soft colors and the pretty flowers.
We have all seen these dollar store pumpkins. I'm going to pull out the top of my pumpkin. But the first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of this orange colour. This has got a nice dry coat of boss on it, and I've actually applied 1 coat of paint on top as well. We just want the top layer, the layer that has the printing on it. And I'm just taking the edges off. I'm going to make smaller pieces out of this. And I'm just going to apply some glue. Take my first piece of napkin. I'm just going to drop it on top. And then I'm going to use my glue brush, adding a little bit more glue on top. Because they're just going to cross over and it's going to give a really good natural finish. Next thing we need to do is take our stalk and make this a little bit special. We're going to take some gold paint. Probably going to have to do a few coats of this to make this covered completely. And I found these really cool stick-on tattoos. I will get my water spray, spray it, get it nice and wet on this side. Actually just going to push it onto the pumpkin. And you can kind of see it coming off from the other side. There we go, look at that. How simple. I absolutely love the way that these pumpkins have turned out.
I'm going to start with some artificial pumpkins and a hot glue gun. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and put a pattern on with the glue. Then make sure that you pick off all of the threads. And when you have that all done, you're going to paint. I'm going to paint the stem.
Gather them together in the center of a table, put them in a basket or a bowl, and they are the stars of this pretty table.
We're just going to remove the stem off of him. So the first thing I like to do is I like to get a little bit of cornstarch in this. These are silicone, and I just like to kind of just start feeding it into the mold like that, pressing it down with my fingers. You can see how nice and easy it is to remove that excess. And then I just flip the mold over and roll it right out. And look at how gorgeous that is. I am going to be using Tight Bond Quick and Thick. I'm just gonna get a generous amount on here. So all I'm doing is I'm just gently kind of pressing it into the groove there without destroying any of the detailing of the mold. So I'm gonna continue around the pumpkin. So I'm just gonna give it a twist and pull it out. Thin piece of clay. And the idea is we just want to kind of roll it out. It's just like making pie dough. Taking a stamp called Kindest Regards, and all we're going to do is we're just going to lay it down here and press into our clay. You want to do nice and firm so you get a nice indentation into the clay here. Oh yeah, look at how nice that is. Making sure we get it all around the edges as well. I'm just going to spread it around a little bit with my hand. I'm going to flip it over. And then just kind of, again, use your hands, kind of fit it around, forming into those grooves. So we're going to let this sit. It has been 24 hours, so our clay is pretty dry. I'm using the color French Eggshell. Going to town here. I'm using a chippy brush. I love these. They have very feathery bristles, which allows you to get into the cracks and crevices really easily. We're just gonna get this clay, all the clay area covered. So for the bottom half of the pumpkin, we're gonna go ahead and use this Rust-Oleum metallic. Obviously, we wanna go around that edge of the pumpkin. Doesn't have to be perfect by any means. pulling down the paint. I ended up putting a couple of coats in order for the pumpkin to be completely covered. Taking some acrylic paint. This is called Burnt Umber. So I'm just gonna add some spritzes of water in here. And then you're just gonna start kind of like pouncing your brush down in that scripting detail that is on your pumpkin. And just do a small area at a time and start wiping it away. And you can put on as much or as little as you want. So now for our final step, all I want to do is I'm taking the original stem from the pumpkin and we're going to glue it in place. And for this one, I'm going to use a color, another fusion color called Homestead Blue. Same process as we did before on the little guy. So what we're going to do on this guy, instead of replacing his stem with the original stem, we are going to use this beautiful knob that I picked up. There you have our two beautiful foam pumpkin redo. Aren't they gorgeous?
I found this really cute pumpkin at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to start by using Mondego in black. We're going to go ahead and just base coat. So we're going to let this thoroughly dry. So our paint is completely dry and we're ready for our next step, which is going to be our Artsyville Embellishments foil adhesive. I'll always add just a little bit of water and you'll see that it goes on looking milky white, so it's really easy to see. We're going to go ahead and put 100% coverage on our pumpkin, just like we did the base coat with the Mondego. Okay, let's let this dry. We're grabbing our Wild Leopard Spots Gold. So I'm going to go ahead and lay a piece of this on here as far as it will go. And I like to use just a soft rag to start with and just rub it on. So you're going to have to kind of release it and let it sit down in there. Also try our nail brush as well. Play around and figure out what works best. I'm going to keep going around. So here's our pumpkin, all completely done and on our table.
I'm now going to stencil my design onto this middle bit of the napkin. I've got a really nice dark green here. Okay, that should be enough. Now this is dry and I've cut it into 4 bits. Using an artist's brush and some water, I'm going to paint around a section of leaves because I want to pull this part out. Any glue that you've got, and then taking one of my pieces that I've cut out, going to put it onto my pumpkin like that and smooth it down. And because it's got a white background, it just blends into the pumpkin. So I'm taking the same gel medium that I used before, and then I'm going to take some gold leaf and using a very soft brush, pat it down. And here are my finished pumpkins. I think it's really nice to have glam ones for a change. What do you think?
Do this and you'll save yourself a trip to the grocery store. After cutting up my green onion, celery, and lettuce, I placed the bottom ends into a container of clean water. I added 4 toothpicks to each of the celery and lettuce ends so they were suspended in water. I placed the food scrap containers in a warm area with lots of natural sunlight, and I replaced the water every 4 to 5 days. After about 4 weeks, I had a whole new batch of green onion, and before you know it, I'll have celery and lettuce too. The green onion was so flavorful, and it was delicious on top of our homemade double stuffed potatoes.
Don't throw those milk jugs away. Take that cap and drill some holes in the top. Put some nice clear water in there, and it's great for your plants. You can see how much water you have left, and it gives you the perfect flow. Let's grab a lemon right out of the tree or off the ground. Cut it in half. You can use this after you take out the inside, and we're going to put some potting soil in there. Once you get it all filled up, put your starter in there and give it some water. Once you buried it up, it will decompose, giving it some nutrients. Perfect little starter. Now we're moving on to those plants out front. Go ahead and put some holes in there. Use a drill or a knife. Dig a hole, stick that bottle inside. All you need to do is have the cap showing. Once you get it buried up and packed in there, take the cap off, fill it with water. It's one of those slow waters, but it will get down deep inside the roots. Saves water, makes your plants look great.
I had a very old and large flower pot, so I started with some Rust-Oleum spray paint in the color cement. Decided to add a gingham ribbon. Now these flower pots are really large, and it takes a lot of soil sometimes to fill these up. Grab some pool noodles. Cut the pool noodles into small sections. Place all of these sections into the flower pot, and it takes a little bit of arranging to get them into the flower pot the way you want them to look. You could stop here, or I'm going to add a pizza pan to the top of the pool noodles. The water will be able to drain around the outside edge. I add some soil to the top of the pizza pan, and then it's time to plant my flowers.
Hosta are great plants. They're so easy to grow and divide if you want more. Most of them are deer, rabbit, and disease resistant. I have a lot of hosta at my house, all different varieties for sun and shade. I think the biggest question everybody has about hosta is which variety should be planted in the sun and which varieties are for the shade. The answer is the lighter the foliage, the brighter the sun. So you would plant golden or chartreuse hosta in full sun. The variegated leaved variety would go in sun or shade, and the blue-leafed variety are for full shade. The most popular variety that you see are the variegated, such as Minuteman or Liberty. These can be planted anywhere and will thrive. The soil for hostas should be slightly acidic and have good drainage. But with a little care, they will mature in 4 to 8 years, and some will grow into massive plants. The best time to divide a hosta is in the spring before the leaves unfurl, but you can really divide them in any season as long as it's not really hot outside. To begin, place your shovel at the base of the plant and dig down about 5 inches. You want to dig around the entire perimeter of the plant, then lift it out of the garden. Hosta have very shallow roots, so it's very easy to dig. To divide the hosta, you lay it on its side and then place a garden spade in the middle of the root ball. A garden spade is different than a regular shovel. A garden spade has a flat bottom. Now you want to press down firmly on the spade with your foot and split the hosta. You can continue to split the hosta as many times as you like. You just need to make sure that each new plant has roots attached. Now you need to plant your new little hosta plants. You want to dig a hole a little larger than the actual plant. Hold the leaves up and fill the hole with soil. You want to remove any leaves that have broken off and water well. Recut the ends of any leaves that you removed and arrange them in a vase just as you would with flowers. This display will last for weeks.
If you're trying to clean your tools, add a little baby oil to them first. Plant as usual, weed your garden, and they'll clean right off. Another tip is fertilizing plants that you can't reach. So grab a cardboard paper tube, place it into the plant, and sprinkle the fertilizer down the tube into the plant's root system.
I decided that I really didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on this project, so I used whatever things I had around the house already. And then to keep the soil from coming out of the sides, we used some landscape fabric and some of those pieces of wood to hold the fabric in place. And I used some old 4x4s left over from an old playset to make planter boxes. So we salvaged what we could from the old garden and pressure washed the bricks and the patio stones. And I reclaimed the sand and pebbles from the old garden to level out the walking space between the boxes. And then I added more of the reclaimed soil from the old garden, planted some seeds, planted some pretty flowers because you want your garden to look pretty. And of course you want to be able to eat out of your garden, so I added some herbs as well as some tomatoes and some peppers, cucumbers, and a few other things. Now I'm no master gardener, but I have learned a few things over the years. Eggshells, for instance, can add calcium back into your soil, which is particularly good for tomatoes. Just crunch up the shells and sow them into your soil. Another way to add additional nutrients back into your soil is ashes from wood-burning logs. Now this will also raise the pH of your soil, so you wouldn't want to put it around acid-loving plants like azaleas and blueberries and strawberries, but it's really great for tomatoes and a lot of the other plants in your garden, as well as the hardwood trees in your yard. It's been a few weeks and the garden is starting to really look beautiful.
I grabbed this box of borax for this spooky decor. I filled a large pot with water and poured in half the box of borax. I stirred frequently and heated it until the borax was completely dissolved. The water was near a boil at this point and it was clear. I placed a skull that we had collected from the forest into the water and positioned it so it was fully submerged. I removed from the heat and let it sit untouched. After 18 hours, I pulled the skull out and it created the spookiest crystallized skull, perfect for Halloween decor. To clean the pot, I reheated it until the borax was fully dissolved again and then drained it. I hope this inspired you to create your own spooky crystallized decor.
I picked up these skeletal hands from Dollar Tree. So what I got to do is cut it right at the first knuckle there. Once you cut out that knuckle, the finger will bend right up. Just take some hot glue, put it in there, hold it in place for about 10 seconds, and it'll stay right there. I did this with every finger on 4 sets of hands. Next, what I did was I grabbed one of these fairy lights from Dollar Tree. But what I need is the battery pack and the lights themselves. Unscrew the light bulb, pull the fairy light out. This little battery pack just pops right out with your thumb, and all I need to do is get rid of that base there. This candle I also got from Dollar Tree, and I want to put the fairy lights inside. Go ahead and cut that square out on all 4 sides. The fairy lights inside. Hot glue on the side will be perfect. That will hold the battery pack in place. Just when I can't think I can get spooky enough, I grab a red crayon and a little lighter and let that drip all along the candle. Now with the board, for this project I wanted to use some old pallet wood. Then I took some other scrap wood, put some glue on the back. I'm going to use some brad nails to put that together. It's going to hold these boards together, and then I'll cut off the ends just to make them square. Next, it's time to paint it. I'm going to use a little bit of black paint. Now, I don't want this to be solid. I can just go random on it all over and anywhere, but I want to make sure I do get the sides. Then I'm going to add just a tiny bit of gray. I need to put some nails and screws through there. Those are going to hold the hands on. Once I get these holes drilled, what I want to do is take the screws on the back end. Once the screw's sticking out, there's a little hole in the back of the hand. Just place that on the screw and start twisting. And once you get to the base of the wood, it's going to stop. You want to make sure all the hands are facing the same way. Go ahead and grab some of that hot glue again, put it right on top. Last but not least, let's put a little Velcro on the bottom of that candle. One side on the candle, one side on the palm. That way we can remove the candle and change the batteries if they run out of power. We're going to go ahead and put these all on here. I couldn't help myself, but I had a few fairy lights still left over. You'll see them lit up on the back. I also grabbed this little drape from Dollar Tree. It looks like a little spider web. Once the lights go low, look at that. It just glows in the dark. It's a spectacular project, and I love making it. It's time to clean out those milk jugs. First thing we're going to do after cleaning it out is mark the handle and the lid on the top because we want to cut those out. Grab your heat gun, heat up the label for just a few seconds, and it pops right off. Next thing I had to do was order a resin skull, something that will take a bunch of heat. I did remove the jaw, and what I've got to do is place it on a stand. Go ahead and grab you some 2-part epoxy. Just place the glue once it's all mixed all the way around. Then grab the skull and you're going to place it on top. Hold it on there for about 4 to 5 minutes and it's going to be solid. Take that cut out milk jug and we're going to place it right over. Let's grab that heat gun again and we're going to just start heating up the top of the jug. We want to start forming it around the skull. The secret to know if it's ready to shape is it will turn from cloudy to clear. Make sure you have some good gloves on and just keep shaping. Watch this face. It's going to come right through because it clears up, meaning it's hot enough. What we want to do is poke it right there and we're going to push the eyes in. Not too hard though. We don't want to rip them out. We're going to heat it up and we're going to form it underneath. It's going to make it solid. As we do this, we're also going to grab some ice water and a sponge and use it on some of these detailed areas. That locks it in place very quickly because it cools the plastic fast enough. We're going to go ahead and just shape everything around the head and form it in place using that sponge and that ice cold water. When it comes to the teeth, let's take that heat gun and a screwdriver, just push them on through to give it some more detail. Once it's ready, go ahead and go up the back of the skull with some scissors and it can just pop right off. Let's seal up the back. We just got to grab that heat gun again, just on the bottom tabs, push it in place. Once it's formed, make all the milk jugs you want, and we're going to start painting them, and it's going to make a wonderful display. stack these skulls up after we got some paint on them and some wooden flowers and a candle.
We're going to start this project with 5 skulls from the dollar store. Take your Sharpie and make a circle at the top of the skull, and you're going to take that out. Then we're going to take an assortment of colors, starting with the cream color first. So we're going to paint each one of the skulls. Next, we're going to seal the skulls, and I used a Mod Podge sealer. Spray a thin coat of the sealer on each skull. Now we're going to take some faux flowers or some different pieces that you find, and we're going to add those in the top of the skull. I have to say, this turned out super cute, and I think it's a great alternative if you don't want spooky Halloween decorations.
You're going to need 2 laundry baskets. If you can't find black laundry baskets, you can paint them, and I'll be using Rust-Oleum black spray paint.
Next, you're going to need a skeleton and place him inside. And we're going to take the other basket and place it on top. For this guy, what I've decided to use is hot glue. So I purchased some Halloween chain garland that we're going to use to help hang him. So I'm going to slide it onto a slat and hook it on like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So for this next version, you're going to need 2 dollar store trash cans and a skeleton from Dollar Tree. I'm just going to cut her little stretchy cord here. So I'm going to take the strings and I'm going to thread them up through the trash can. So I'm going to pull her up straight like this. Next, I'm going to make a little knot, and this will cause her to hang up straight. And I'm going to place the 2 trash cans on top of each other. I'll be using black paracord to adhere her together. Now, to hang her, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to loop it down through one of the holes and then work my way up through another hole. And then once I get it up, I'm going to just give it some extra length for hanging. And now I've created a way to hang it. Here they are hanging in our yard, and I'm so thrilled with how they turned out.
So I found a container that would fit right down inside. When I have my plaster of Paris completely stirred, I can go ahead and stick into it my piece of PVC. About 15 minutes, it is ready to go. So I got a collection of skulls from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to give these a coat of this chalky paint. I'm going to take each one and cut an X. One in the top of the head and then one down here. All right, I have my urn and I have my PVC post in the plaster of Paris. And I'm going to set this right down inside. So I'm just going to stick a couple pieces of styrofoam in there. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and going to push these in just a little bit and slide them right down over and all the way down. And we're just going to feed our skulls right onto that PVC post. This skull, I have only cut a hole in the bottom. It's going to go right over it and get secured right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue right there to secure these together. I'm just going to add Spanish moss to give it that real creepy feel. And we're going to wrap it around and tuck it in to give that real creepy feeling. And now right in by that styrofoam, I'm going to stick some hands. And now our decoration is all ready. And here is our skull topiary. Make sure that you paint those skulls with a spray polyurethane so that the paint doesn't wash off.
I gave these golden oak chairs from the early 80s a complete makeover. I sanded all the wood clean before applying the barkeeper's friend. After a bit of trial and error, I figured out that the easiest way to cover all the wood was to mix the barkeeper's friend into a paste and paint it on. After letting them dry for several hours, I scraped off the dried paste before wiping the wood clean with a wet cloth. I used a clear, water-based sealer to protect the wood. Replacing the cane was a little tricky. The seats also got a new look with new foam and new fabric.
I picked up a set of chairs off Facebook Marketplace. To begin, I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to go around the outside of the fabric. So I just have a spray bottle here with some water in it, and I'm going to begin to work in small sections, just spraying off some of the chair with the water. You just want it damp enough that the paint will soak in. For the upper portion of my chair, I just continue in the same process that I have been doing. When I am done painting, I'm going to remove the painter's tape, and I do this when the paint is still a little bit tacky. You don't want to wait till it's completely dry because you may peel off the paint. Can't beat the price of free, so let's give this stool new life. I'm going to begin by sanding off just the top part of the stool. I want to leave this down to the bare wood, and I painted the legs and the spindles on the stool, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it just a little bit of shine with this gold wax from Country Chic Paint. Then I took this Magnolia Garden Transfer from Dixie Belle Paint, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply this to the top part of my stool. I'm going to come in with this tough coat from Country Chic Paint just to seal it onto my design.
I found 6 chairs on Facebook Marketplace that were perfect for a makeover. I started by disassembling the seats of each chair. Because I was planning on painting the chairs, I first needed to give them a good sand. I applied 2 coats and let them dry for 24 hours. I first snipped the strings holding the buttons and then got to work on removing the hundreds of staples to loosen the fabric. Once all the staples were out, I was able to remove the fabric and reveal the batting and the cushion. To cut costs, I'm using a heavy-duty drop cloth for my fabric. After washing and drying the cloth, I used the old cover as a pattern for my new upholstery. Once the covers were cut, I secured them to each of the seat cushions. The most important part of the step is pulling the fabric tight before stapling. This creates a clean, polished look. I then reattached the bottoms with 4 screws and my chairs were done.
I'm going to give this old chair a makeover. I've cleaned it really well, and when it's dry I'll give it a light sanding, and then I'm going to give it 2 coats of primer. So I'm laying down quite a thin layer of the varnish, making sure that the seat is covered. I'm working in 2 halves here. And then using the spray bottle, spray the back of the paper. So using the scrunched up piece of plastic wrap, start in the center and work your way out, smoothing the paper as you go. Then when you've done that half, do the same thing on the other side. When it's all completely dry, use a very sharp knife to remove any excess paper. I'm going to use a spray varnish first, and then when that's dry, I gave it 3 coats of a water-based varnish.